Dan and Laura Dotson, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, we appreciate it.
Dan and Laura Dotson are the featured auctioneers on A&E's hit reality show Storage Wars. In addition, they are the owners of American Auctioneers. American Auctioneers handles over 3,000 auctions and appraisals every year, making Dan and Laura America's #1 auction team. You can learn more about my guests by visiting AmericanAuctioneers.com or their new website, StorageAuctions.net. Before we go any further, what in the world are you auctioneers saying? Why isn't it like Sotheby's where the auctioneer clearly speaks and it's all very sophisticated? Let's open the bidding at 100 million. You know, what's the purpose of all the babbling?
Well, we don't take ourselves that serious. My grandfather was an auctioneer. I'm a third-generation auctioneer, and I've been an auctioneer since 1974 when I was 11 years old. And traditional auctioneers can sell large groups, large quantities of stuff in a short amount of time. When they're selling a $10 million painting at Sotheby's or Christie's, they've got 5 or 6, 7, 10 minutes to spend on that piece if they need to. Where normally when we're doing a liquidation on our estate, we might give an item 15 to 30 or 40 seconds, but then it's sold and it's moved on and we move on. So that's just how I learned to auctioneer, and that's how we do it.
And I think it fuels the frenzy when they hear this rhythmic auction chant. I think the excitement in the crowd, the anticipation, the excitement, they want to bid, they want to win, and I just believe it fuels everything.
When, you have to put pressure on people to, let them decide and have them make up their minds if they want to bid or they don't want to bid on something. So, when you're moving stuff out, you make them think about it and give you the decision. And then you move on, and that's just the way I like to do it.
Well,
I get good money for stuff.
Is there a big difference between auctioneers? Can one sell more merchandise at a higher price than others? Is it an art?
I can tell you one time I did this tuxedo auction, and I got all my buddies to come down with a bunch of these models that I picked from photos. And these models, I had like 300 or 400 wedding dresses, and I had a group of people. My mom was alive at the time. Laura was involved in it, and they were dressing these models and bringing them down. And some models got a lot better money for some clothes than other ones did. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, every time this one model comes down this walkway and I'm auctioning off her dress, she moves that fabric a certain way. She really makes it look exciting. She makes it look valuable, and she really owns it. As a good auctioneer will own it also. And there's a big difference between an auctioneer that has been doing it for a month and an auctioneer that's been doing it for 40 years. It's just, it's just a style, and it's getting people into a groove. And, new auctioneers might talk at people. Hell, I talk to people because it's all about communicating.
And you're the best at reading body language. Danny really can tell when that person wants it, if he's going to bid. Sometimes she'll nudge me to look in a certain direction because I look and to work that person and look at them because they're anticipating that bid, and 9 times out of 10 he's exactly right. He's really taught me a lot, and I'm really happy that the best teacher on the planet. You're welcome.
I had good teachers too.
Yeah.
Well, you create a relationship with your bidders, right? And you kind of get to know them, and the more you work with them, I'm sure the more it works together.
It's true.
Any auctioneer that knows his product and knows his buyers is probably going to do a lot better than an auctioneer that doesn't know his product or buyers, for sure.
I really feel lucky because, I don't feel, first off, that I'm even out there working. I really, really enjoy it. And I feel like every day, Danny and I get to go visit our friends and see what's going on in their lives. And it's something new every day. It's out of the box. The characters are wonderful. And it's not just what you see on TV. We are auctioning all the time. So it's something with a different story every night around the dinner table.
American Auctioneers has a whole team of auctioneers that go out every day.
Yeah, we enjoy it.
How did you get involved in this, Laura?
I was opening some restaurants, and one of the vendors, I'd asked him, where can I get some, good equipment? And he said, you should send an auction.
Back in the 90s, right?
Yes, and he gave me this auction flyer, yes, in the 90s. And I was, finding my locations. I'm going to open an Italian restaurant. So once a year straight, for 3 years in a row, I was opening up restaurants. I'd opened up 2, fully serviced the third one, and Danny was the auctioneer at this auction. Now, he was selling restaurant equipment, and it wasn't storage where you have time in between units to talk. It's like he's got 800 lots, He's going a million miles an hour, and he's looking and he's flirting with me. And that is how I got in the auction business and met my husband.
She's not kidding. 3 times, once a year for 3 years in a row, she would come and buy restaurant equipment. And I would laugh and flirt with her, and she would just leave. Well, the third time, I just sprung on her, and I said, if you're not attached, I would just snatch you up. She goes, I'm not. Here's my number. Call me. And she's never left.
It was love at first sight, and I feel like I got the biggest prize. I won, the biggest auction item, the auctioneer. Yep. And I sold my restaurant about 5 years later or so, and, we held on to him for a little while, and then got into the auction business with Danny, really heavy and strong. And by 96 up until like 2000, I was helping build up his clientele, and he kind of, he gave me confidence, and, the circumstances were kind of funny how I started auctioneer. He had gotten his wisdom teeth pulled, and, Danny's a very dedicated auctioneer. I've never seen him call in sick, other than his brain aneurysm, and that's the truth, and he barely took any time for that. And then one show where, he had a sore throat, of course. But anyway, he had his wisdom teeth pulled, and he could not open his mouth. And I'm looking at him like, what do you mean you can't talk? What do you mean you can't handle your auctions, next, Monday, and it was Thursday. And he says, you're just going to have to come out with me, and you're going to have to do the talking. Well, oh, no way. I went right upstairs, his mom was staying with us at the time, and I said to her, Sammy, you're out here, with us, and you've got some auctions to do this whole week. And she looks at me, and she says, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, well, your son's had his wisdom teeth pulled, and you've got 17 auctions to do, and I'm just, ready for her to do it and say, of course. She said, no, I don't. You do. You're his wife, and those are your auctions. You're going to handle them. And I looked at her like just terrified, but it was the best thing that ever could have happened because it gave me confidence. She told me it doesn't matter how fast I go, just get out there and get the money, that I'm, doing what I need to do for the family. And I haven't looked back ever since. I got such a kick out of it. People really warmed up to me. They, watched me and Danny's puffed out cheeks and me auctioneering and Danny being the best teacher helping me find the bids. I wasn't afraid, and, it's been a wonderful harmony Danny and I have had with this auction business, and then storage wars. My goodness. Wow. What a role, huh?
You can do the auctioneer's rap, just like Dan then.
Absolutely.
And you're multilingual.
I speak a few different languages, and
Arabic.
Can you do the auctioneer's rap in a different language?
Sure. That was Arabic, and I said, all right, here we go. What are you going to give me? I got $5 right here. Thank you very much. Yep. Yep. And no se le viene pagar la dama. And that's, don't forget to pay the lady in Spanish. There you go. It's very fun.
So how did A&E hear about you two? Did they come up with the concept, or did you guys, or how did that work?
Danny had been, and I had been putting some YouTubes out. We had been, during the strict economy thing in 07 and 08, had, figured out what YouTube was and started filming ourselves. And I just really know that Danny is the best auctioneer on the planet, that I feel. And I wanted to catch his legacy. So we got this 3-chip camera.
Tom Beers, I'm going to take this.
Yep.
He agrees.
Yes, he does. It's true. So we started putting YouTubes out. The next thing you know, in 2009, we had KCT, NBC, KCLA, and ABC wanting to do like a strict economy show and show what's going on in the economy and people changing their profession, because of what was happening.
They'd ask us if they could use us as the auctioneers show.
Yes. Next thing you know, all these different things came out, and within an 18-month period, we had 27 different producers and different networks vying for a show, and it was a couple every week getting a hold of us and saying, we would like to do a show around you and your wife, and boy, we'd like to do an auction concept. And
we signed right up with a company called Go Lucky.
Yes.
6-month contract.
Yes.
They failed.
Well, you know what? They had an idea to do one, but they didn't have the right concept, because Danny and I are, basically storage auctioneers. It's our, bread and butter. We do a lot of it.
Laura woke up from a dream one day, and she says, I'm not going to worry about the Go Lucky. She's got this dream book, and she has these really twisted, weird, prolific dreams. And anyway, she's writing it down, and she goes, on September 2nd, we're going to meet a company, production company. They're going to be called AZ Production, and they're going to have offices. She writes this stuff down in her book, I swear to God. They're going to have offices in New York, Miami, Memphis, and L.A., and on October 14th, they're going to They're going to pitch us to the network that's going to pick us up. Thank you, God. She underlines it twice. And I'm thinking, okay, great, right? September 2nd comes along. I do get an email, but it's not from AZ. It's from North-South Productions. And it's funny because they have an office in New York. They have an office in Miami. They have an office in L.A. And they don't have one in Memphis, Tennessee, but they have one in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's close enough for me. I tell all these other production companies, forget it. Mama had a dream. We're going this way. And then we get October 13th comes along, and we get an email from them saying, hey, we're gonna pitch you to the History Channel tomorrow, October 14th. Well, I knew that. Mama dreamt that 3 or 4 months before that. It's,
Baby owns history.
That's true.
Yeah.
And anyway, then we didn't hear anything, and Laura gets another dream, and she dreamt that they took our tape and they put it inside of a cabinet.
How hiding us from the world and closed his door on us.
That's what it turned out to be, but she didn't seem to, you didn't.
Well, they were putting us in a cabinet and closing the door, and I said, what do you think that means, Dan? He goes, I think you need to call them. Well, I did. I got on the phone, and I called up the production company, and they mistook me when I said, hello, this is Laura, Dan Dotson's wife, the auctioneer, and the wife, and they said, oh, hey, hi, Laura. They said, hey, how's it going? They said, they love the auction house concept, and we think the network's going to pick it up. And I said, auction house? What about storage? And they were like, oh, my gosh, who is this? Who am I talking to? And I said, Dan Dotson's wife. And they said, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I confused you with Marlene, the other auctioneer's wife. I said, what other auctioneer? What other auction show? And they said, we can have 2 auction shows. And I thought, geez, they said, well, we've been working on this one for about 4 years trying to get the concept of auctions out there, and we're going to do this one first.
Laura starts busting them up saying, wait a minute, what's going on? What's the name of that show? And the guys are stuttering and backtrolling and stuff, and Laura hangs up the phone, and she's just about to cry, and out loud she prays, God, just send us a Tom Beers. I swear to God she said that. I didn't even know who he was. I said, who's Tom Beers? She said,
for a trucker, that's Axman. That's Deadly as Catch. Those are the shows you watch, Danny.
And so anyway, okay, great, yeah, we need a guy like that. And 3 weeks later, I'm at a sale in L.A., and planets were lined up, man. I'm doing great. I'm on fire. I can't even do anything wrong. And this dude comes up to me and he says, have you ever thought about doing a reality show? Well, I've had 15 other assholes talk to me like that before. And so I look at this guy all cocky. I point at him. I say, yeah, you're number 16, baby. What's your name? And he hands me his card, and it's Tom Beers. And I just stopped all over. You don't kidding me? I started stammering. I said, my wife prayed to God you'd come, and here you are right here. I said, you're the guru. Yeah. You can turn this stuff into gold. And, we've got a few days left on our contract if you're patient. He said, I'm patient. In the meantime, we were doing a little consulting for True TV and Spike on the other shows, and we had the Discovery Channel production company contact us 7 months before our contract was due, wanting us to sign with Discovery Channel, 6 shows. And so, I'm an auctioneer. I know how to get the most out of everything. So that's what we did. And so we signed up for 4 shows, and now we just filmed 198.
Yeah.
8 seasons, baby. I can't believe it.
Do you ever bid on the lockers, Laura? You seem to be psychic.
It was really funny. I don't, because it's kind of I think it's unethical for
it's a conflict of interest, so to speak.
Unethical for an auctioneer against their buyers.
Yes, I can't really go up against them, but I have attended other auctions.
We like to buy. We buy hot rods and guns and jewelry. We like auctions, and we do a lot of stuff on eBay too. I think that's kind of what inspired StorageAuctions.net.
Yeah.
eBay's kind of a cool thing. Everybody's gravitated towards it, and the online self-storage business is booming, and we just want to be part of it. And our system's kind of cool because we don't charge the sellers anything. There's no hidden fees, and the buyers all pay the same buyer's premium. They don't have to get switched and changed up like some of the other sites out there. So we really have a great product that we're excited about, and I think eBay inspired that, and YouTube inspired Storage Wars. So there you go, a couple of blue chips right there for you.
Let me ask you this. What's the secret to a long, healthy relationship? You've both been together for 20 years, and I can't keep a girlfriend for a week, let alone marry her.
You know what? I'm going to tell you. I just realized this the other day.
You can't keep one for a week. You might be searching the wrong gender.
Let me tell you.
Well, I'm like Seinfeld. Every little thing bugs me.
I hear you. But I'll tell you, you know what Danny did? And this is the truth, he listens to what I'm saying, and I thought, wow, you really listen? He said, well, I listened to the last 7 words of what you're saying, because I go, what did I say? And he'll repeat it, and I'll tell you what, our relationship is a give and take. I think we respect each other.
I think she probably gives more than she takes.
Aww.
That's probably important. Find a woman that's not too into herself, and one that's humble, and one that truly loves you, and you'll keep her longer than a week, I'm sure. I'm a hard-headed guy. I'm spoiled. I like to have my own way, but it seems like in a marriage, you kind of gotta try to go with the flow. And there's certain things that I'm responsible for, and that's to keep the wolves away from the door. And Laura's responsibility is to
love it. Help you get out the door.
yeah. Put shells in my rifle and hand it to me. Let me go out there and take care of stuff.
Some questions from the audience. This is kind of interesting. Do they enjoy profiting off the misery of others? How do you feel about that? The ethics of...
I love that question. Can I answer it, or do you want to?
Oh, no, go right ahead.
All right, here's the way I answer that. Yeah, a lot of people have said, how can you smile? How can you have a good time? How can you make these buyers feel good about buying off the backs and the misery of someone else? Well, let me tell you something. When money gets tight, your priorities change. And if you're trying to feed your family, you shouldn't be paying a few $100s a month for something that's stored. You should have figured it out before you went broke, sold that shit, and then fed your family. That's what should have done. Now, once these people that work their ass off buying and selling this stuff, taking care of the mess that you left behind, they're going to feed 10 families out there because they've got a vacuum they can sell to somebody that doesn't have a lot of money for $20, that doesn't have $125 to go buy one for. They're helping a lot of people out. So that's the way I look at it. I feel bad that people lose their stuff. I feel bad when they lose their jobs, when they lose family members, when mental illness, when they become homeless. I don't like any of that. No. And I'm not part of the problem. I am part of the solution, because if I'll finish this up and then you can. And these self-storage facilities are multi-million-dollar businesses that if nobody paid them, they would just go bankrupt, and then somebody would buy them for nothing. It would just eventually kind of happen. So people need to take care of their business. When we can't pay our bills, we lose our stuff. That's how it works. Welcome to America.
Well, I will say, though, like with ourselves and the storage facilities, they do just about everything they can to try to get to help, work out a payment plan, some type of structure or something, or get a hold of some next of kin or something for those units. Because, the last thing storage facilities want to do is sell your stuff. They want to store it.
And in California, it's part of the law that, somebody can do an opposition to lien and they can stop the lien. Mm-hmm. All they have to do is put the facility on notice. That's a little known fact. But, any auction, self-storage, state of California gets an opposition lien, it's going to, you're right. And the overage is they're going to stop the sale. And if they owe a certain amount of money and it brings more money, then they're entitled to that overage money back. So let's say I've got a big 10 by 30 unit. It's everything that somebody owned, and for whatever reason they just couldn't pay it and they owed $1,000 on it. Let's say I get $5,000 for it. Now they're going to get $4,000 back. They just have to request it, and if they don't request it, it'll be sitting with the county. So they need to check their name with the county. If you have any relatives out there that have lost stuff, because if there was an overage, it's sitting out there waiting for the family to pick up.
And also, if that person that lost that unit knows, that their stuff is going to sell, they have every right to come to that auction and bid on that unit themselves, and maybe even get it for, cents on the dollar or what they owe.
But they have to remove it just like everybody else. You got 24 hours to clean it out. If that's the terms, then if they don't get it out and they breach, then, that gives the facility all right and title to trash that stuff.
And a lot of our buyers that are, not only on our show, give out their phone number to the person, believe it or not, that loses that unit if they're there, and they said, I need my personal on the photographs.
We could write a whole book on the right etiquette for a buyer to talk to a past owner, because they're not all nice and pleasant.
And, we've been doing this for so long, I think that, we really work with the people that lose the units also, and a lot of them have turned into new potential buyers that we have. There's a funny relationship that goes on and stuff like that, but we definitely don't like to see people hurt or sell their stuff, or even when people lose their stuff.
And we don't take glee out of selling people's stuff, but we do take pride in getting the most money that we can for everything, because, again, if there's an overage, that person's going to get it, and they're entitled to get any overages on the stuff that they lost. But we don't like to see people lose their stuff. But whenever somebody says a comment like that, it just kind of makes me chuckle, because they obviously are not business people. They obviously couldn't run a country. I'm not even sure how they run a household.
Well, I understand people being down on the ethics, say, of a pawn shop. Predator loan, right? But this is a completely different situation. This is a default on payment.
I don't the pawn shop guys are wrong either, Russell. I think you're wrong in making that statement. They're out there.
Well, I'm saying an argument could be made for that, certainly much less so for the storage lockers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're just doing a service, and we don't have any personal gain in or out of it. The more money we get for it, the more commissions we make.
I think that is how come the world was so fascinated when Storage Wars came out, because it was a secret, kind of a world. Not, people don't want to say, hey, I'm selling your storage. So it was kind of hidden. And storage sales, really, people didn't know about.
They were all in the closet with their light stuff.
Well, I think the timing was right. Remember, that came out just after the recession there of 2008, and people were looking for some way to make money, right?
Yeah. That's why those news agencies all got together, like Laura was telling us earlier. Yeah. And, the timing was right. The planets were lined up right. There's absolute fascination for what's in the box. And can they really sell stuff? Well, hell yeah, they really sell. You'd be amazed how many more people are paying their bills now to the self-storage industry because they know I'm the last asshole you want to see in front of your unit,
Yeah.
Another question from the audience. This is funny. Does Dan wear a wig? Dan, are you wearing an antique rug?
I swear to God, I have great hair.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said that I've got a toupee, but I don't know. I mean, I wear it pretty short.
Honest to God, Danny, it's got the most gorgeous hair, and, I'm glad because, my son has got this beautiful red hair also.
Even Betty White talks about my hair.
Yeah, nice haircut.
The hot in Cleveland show.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people think I have a wig. Nope, it's my own hair.
You know who they think is that Men's Warehouse guy. They go, do you have like a toupee like that? But Danny's just got that really gorgeous hair stuck to his head with that widow's peak, sexy look. And I'll tell you what, it's getting a little bit of salt and pepper, but not really even pepper. What would you call it? Cayenne and salt.
All right, calm down, Laura.
Come on, man.
You're both successful. It's not my business how much you're worth, but I imagine if you could choose to retire, you could if you wanted to. What keeps you motivated? Why are you working so hard?
I think, we don't feel like we're working. I think Danny actually thrives on the business deal, the art of negotiation. He loves connecting people with treasures, and I think that Danny has got this thing. He's a third-generation auctioneer, and I believe he is fulfilling something, a dream that he's had and his grandfather and his mother. And
we've got a little orchard down here at the house, and Laura's thinking about doing like a little show for cooking or canning or whatever, and then I'm a little bit of a botanist, so I think, God, I'd like to mix up the lime and the lemon trees and make something or, whatever. We're always looking at things in a fresh way, and there's always opportunities around us that for very little energy, we could probably turn that into a financial gain.
And, Danny being a third-generation auctioneer, I think that he just always just out there, never feeling like he has to quit. His grandfather, way late into his, late 80s, being an auctioneer, always the art of negotiation, and he's got this gift that I think that Danny, I don't know if he'll ever retire, but he might slow down a little.
We have a lot of help around us, and we take a lot of opportunities, Laura and I, to get away and to go enjoy ourselves. We've been doing these, we've been buying these gold mines lately and all this equipment, and we've got an RV and trailers and razors and these Outlander quads, and we will go out there and dig in the dirt and love it, and we'll stay gone for a week or two at a time when we can.
Russell, I'm proud to say I'm a gold digger. Right?
Dan, you suffered a double aneurysm in 2014, and you seem like you're doing quite well.
Thank you. We just did a big walk. There was like 1,200 people walking down there in Palm Desert yesterday and making awareness for, stroke and heart health. There's what's it called, babe? An acronym. What is it called?
An acronym hemorrhage.
I was talking about the word fast. What is that?
For your face, your arm.
Yeah, but what's that called?
Anachronism.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I thought you meant what you had happened.
She's just like an encyclopedia. I don't even bother asking Siri things because all I have to do is ask my wife, Laura. Hey, Laura, what's an acronym? Okay, the acronym for stroke is FAST, F-A-S-T. The S is for your face. If it's not straight or one side is drooping, you might be having a stroke. You better get to the doctor. A, that's for your arms. If your arms aren't both the same strength or you cannot hold up a magic pizza box in front of you, you better go to the hospital or see your doctor because you might be having a stroke. And the S in fast, that's for speech. And if your speech is blurring, and that's kind of what was happening with me, man, I was kind of, your tongue will get a little thick, it won't be able to hold out flat, then you might be having a stroke. And T in FAST is timing. If every timing is everything, get yourself to the hospital if you're having any of those signs, and you might just be able to save yourself. A lot of people with strokes are really surviving, and just like me, and not having any deficits or few, and it's because of those things. You know, and so when you think about Dan Dotson, the fast-talking auctioneer, remember FAST, F-A-S-T.
That's right.
Face, arms, kind.
Yeah, he's a miracle, you know, Russell. It's a real miracle. You know, Danny, when he suffered this aneurysm, he was able to have this type of surgery that they were able to go through his groin rather than opening up his brain. And thank God, because
they put a catheter up there with this platinum wire, and they'll put that right inside the aneurysm, the little bubble that comes out of the artery that was leaking blood that's trying to kill my ass, and they would put these platinum coils that would coil up like Brillo pad amongst, and they put 3 behind the one behind my right eye, and they put 15 in the one at the base of my skull. And, you know, 6 or 8 years ago, at the base of my brain, 6 or 8 years ago, it wasn't even really possible to save guys and gals.
It was like you know, 1 out of 5 could be, you know, was saved or so, and it's still, you know, it's really.
I quit smoking 4 days in the ICU, and my grandfather also had a subarachnoid hemorrhage way back in the 70s, and they didn't do anything for it, and he did well with it too.
He had to just live with this until he was much older, but Danny, you know, now with the CAT scans and things like that, he's looking real good in his brain, and we're just so thankful that with technology and catching it in time, that Danny's got another lease on life, and he's got more years.
Yeah, and I'm not going to waste it. And if I do waste it, Russell, it's going to be me wasting it. That's the one thing I've learned, man. It's okay to waste your own time, but don't let anybody else waste your time, because it's yours, and you'll never get it back.
Hey, speaking of a waste of time, what do you really think of Dave Hester?
You know, I think that I've known Dave for 30 years, and there's been a long amount of that time that I was his friend. I mean, I was his friend up until all this stuff happened, and now I'm just convinced, although I forgive him because I'm a Christian and I'm a believer and I have faith, I don't forget anything that he's done, and he's really tried to hurt me, and he's tried to take away mine for a long time, and you know, he absolutely put his hands on me with no regard to my health or anything, and Laura kind of went off on him because, you know, he punched me. You know, he thought he could punch me with 5 cameras around and knock me out. Well, that just didn't happen. You know, I'm really disappointed with Dave, to answer your question, and I think he's really a miserable human being, and I hope that one day that he'll find peace with himself. And Laura wants to add.
But I will say he is one of the best buyers and remains to be one of the best buyers I think I've ever known in the business.
That's true. He's a great
Yeah, he's
buyer.
very clever.
He's a very clever. He's a really great buyer, and I don't mind him being on the show. I don't mind him being one of the good buyers that we have on Storage Wars, because, you know, these are real auctions. These are real risking real money for real auctions for real stuff. And if I take my little band of bandits to a city and I have other local bidders there that are really good buyers, then my guys and gals aren't going to get anything from Storage Wars. So I've got to have good buyers, and we'll just call him DH. He is one.
What he is, though, he's just kind of an instigator. So, you know, what you didn't see on television and why I got so upset was he was saying in collusion, Danny, in collusion there with Ring.
He accused us of doing illegal activities at the auction, and, you know, I can't really go into how things were produced or whatever, or I'll be getting a phone call this evening or whenever this thing goes out. So, but, you know, the show, it was about 30 seconds there on the TV, and it was longer than that. And there was a lot more to it than what was shown. But you know, Laura and I are I was just going to say, Laura and I are kind of old school in a way that, you know, if somebody puts their hands on me, you know, my dad and my mom told me, you know, you just fight your way right on through, and I figure if somebody puts their hands on me first and I put my hands on them last, I kind of figure that we're square. So, we don't press charges, and we don't say, hey, I'm not going to work with that guy because I don't think Dave's going to do it again. I think he learned.
And I understand why he...
And Laura wasn't acting... I mean, Laura knows, that was mutual combat for her, and she just didn't want anybody putting their hands on her man, and I'm kind of proud of her about that. Yeah. So, if you come up and fight me, you're going to have to fight us both. And you come up and fight her, you're going to have to fight us both, too, because that's the way that it works. And
I'm more scared of Laura, personally.
Yeah. Hey, me too. I mean, Dave's really lucky she didn't zap him or stab him or something. I think.
Obviously you have limitations as to what you can say, but how much of it is staged? How much of it is scripted? Is it fake?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real show. It's not a scripted show. When we're sitting in the interview room with the boxes behind us, they'll remind us, okay, you're going to Palm Springs today, and here was kind of, remember, they'll kind of remind us kind of what have happened that day, because they develop. Most of the stories that are on Storage Wars are kind of developed as the thing's going. It kind of lets it develop. So. And we're not professional actors and actresses. I mean, I imagine if it was really scripted, it would fail like a lot of other things do out there, because everybody's being told what to say. The truth is, everybody has got a character on our show, and everybody's a professional at what they're doing.
They're the real thing.
And we have real bidders, we have real auctions, and a lot of people say, let me explain.
They were real bidders in everybody.
A lot of people say, well, there's only 4 people buying at the auctions. It can't be real. Well, that's the way it looks after it's all been produced, because, A&E and Original Productions, they want to have the energy put into the players on the show. So whenever somebody else at an auction buys, and it happens all the time, they drop the camera and go to the next one. It happens more than you know, and we have to film more things than you think in order to get a show. And and people say, oh, they're always getting great stuff out of the units. Well, bull, I don't see all the great stuff come out of the units. I'd like to see some greater stuff come out of the units. The truth is, people make their living on this stuff with the $10, $50 items, $100 items. That's how they're going out every day. Every once in a while, there's a great score, and it happens. A lot of times you don't hear about it, and there's been greater scores without a camera around than there's ever been on Storage Wars. But, we keep filming and we keep going, and as long as we have 1.5 million people that are hardcore Storage Wars fans that love us, they love our show, and as long as they keep watching, I think A&E's going to keep making.
Well, like you said, this is a hardcore fan show. People are addicted to it, but now they have the ability to bid on units through your website, storageauctions.net. Tell me about the website.
Thank you very much. We are so excited to present this to the industry that allowed us to come in. The self-storage industry allowed us to come in and videotape and document some of the most sensitive things about their business, the things that are the largest liabilities, these public auctions. They allowed the show, Storage Wars, to come in. So as a way to not only make money, but to also say thank you, we've brought storageauctions.net to the industry, and there are no fees to the seller. So the self-storage, they can put these things on there all day long, and they don't have to pay anything for it. And there's no membership fees, and there's no commissions. It's all driven on buyers' premiums. And in every state, in 50 states, wherever there's a self-storage, if you go to storageauctions.net, you will see that site. And if they indeed are on our site, you'll see the auction, or at least you'll see their information, and you can reach out to them and find out what their program is.
There's some live auctions on there also. So if you want to get your feet on the ground, it'll show a live auction, and then you can head on out there and go see it.
Yeah, our plan is to figure out associations and not partnerships, but just associations with other auctioneers throughout the United States, and let them also use this to promote their live auctions. And then if they have some of their clients that want to go all online, then, we're making provisions to split up buyers' premiums with other auctioneers and management companies across the United States, so everybody can enjoy this and use this. Yeah, I learned that from an auctioneer a long time ago. He says, Danny, take a little cream and let a little cream go to the next guy. And what that means is just don't be greedy. You don't have to take everything. You can take a little and let the next guy have a little, and then everybody's winning and everybody tries. And that's part of the secret to our success, I think, is that we absolutely believe in that.
Well, you can shear a sheep many times, but slaughter him only once.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Great show, guys. One last audience question. Just make it quick. Who drinks the most beer on the show?
The biggest beer drinker would be Jared. Jared's the beer drinker. Brandy likes the yellow labeled champagne because she likes beer too. Yeah, and Barry White is a honey jack and Coke type of guy, and Laura likes her vodka and lime, and I'm kind of a Jack Daniels guy when I choose to, and I think everybody else are choir children. I don't know.
Right on. And Russell Scott drinks pints of beer.
Right on.
Great show, guys. Dan and Laura Dotson, thank you so much for being on the program. To the audience, visit AmericanAuctioneers.com or get in on the action and go to storageauctions.net. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Russell Scott. We appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. God bless all of you out there.
Thanks for watching.